Wait until the question is finished before you start answering.
Okay.
All right. Counsel?
Thank you, Your Honor. Good morning, Ms. Albrecht-Payton.
Good morning.
How are you doing today?
I'm okay. As good as I can be. Trying to be, yeah.
I understand. We'll take it slow. Try to talk directly into the microphone if you can.
Okay.
And if it's more comfortable for you to take the mask off, that's okay. Whatever makes you comfortable, all right?
Yeah.
But we'll just take it step by step.
Okay.
I'm going to start with some questions about your background.
Okay.
Can you tell the jury how old you are?
I am 20 years old.
And what city do you live in?
I live in St. Paul, Minnesota.
How far did you go in school?
12th grade.
And are you working right now?
Yeah, I am.
And what do you do for work?
I work at a gas station.
And
Sorry, I work at a gas station.
thank you. Do you know Daunte Wright?
I do.
And how did you come to know Daunte Wright?
Through social media, through Facebook.
Did you have a relationship with Daunte Wright?
Yes.
And what type of relationship was that?
It was just like a beginning like of a boyfriend and girlfriend relationship.
And you said it was the beginning of a boyfriend-girlfriend relationship. Had you just gotten to know him or meet him recently?
Yeah.
And when I say recently, that was shortly before April 11th of this year.
Yes.
About how long before that had you met him?
We've talked for about like 2-3 weeks.
So you were just beginning this relationship.
Yes.
So you didn't have an order for protection or any court order against him, did you?
No.
You were just meeting him and just getting to know him, is that right?
Exactly.
So I'm going to direct your attention to April 11th of this year, all right? And I'm going to ask you some questions about that day. Had Daunte Wright stayed at your place the night before April 11th?
I believe so, yeah.
And at some point on April 11th, did you go with him to his parents' house?
Yes, I did.
Did you wait in the car when he went inside?
Yes, I did.
And was there anyone else in the car with you at that time?
No, there was not.
And what car was it that you were in with him?
It was a white car. I'm not familiar with like car brands or names.
Was it Dante's car?
It was Dante's car.
And then after you waited in the car, did you leave with him in that car from his parents' house?
Yes.
And who was driving?
Dante was driving.
And where were you sitting?
I was in the passenger seat.
And that's the front passenger seat?
Yes.
Now, at some point while you were driving in that white car with Daunte Wright, did you get pulled over by the police?
Yes, we did.
Did you learn why you were pulled over?
Like, it was multiple reasons. Like, it was the air fresheners and the tabs and the warrant.
And did you hear Daunte Wright interact with the police when you guys were pulled over?
Yeah, like, kind of. I remember mostly him just talking on the phone with his mom and them just telling me to hang up.
Okay. So was there a point in time where the officer who had pulled you over stepped away from the white car that you were in?
Yes.
And then did the officers come back at some point?
Yes.
Now, in that car that you were in, this white car, was there a gun in that car or any weapon of any kind?
No.
I'll rephrase, Your Honor.
Yes, please.
Do you know if there was a gun or a weapon of any kind in that car?
No.
So there was no weapon in that car?
No, there was not.
Do you know if Daunte had a gun or a weapon on his body or that he was carrying a gun that day?
He was not.
Okay. So at some point you said the officer left, walked away, and then came back to that white car that you were in. What happened when the officers came back to that white car?
When they came back from what I can remember, he just kept asking them, like they would ask him to step out the car, and he kept asking them like why do you want me to step out the car? He kept asking what he did, and they the car.
And how were you feeling while this was going on?
I'm really nervous and scared. I don't really have a good past with police, so every time I encounter, I just get nervous.
So you were nervous and scared. How was Daunte behaving? How did he appear to be feeling during that interaction?
He was really scared. Like, I've never seen him like that before. Because, you know, Daunte, like, he's just really happy, he's positive, and you can't really be, like, sad or depressed or angry or mad around him. And, like, he was just, like, just so nervous and flustered, and I could tell he was just scared, and he just...
Okay.
I don't know.
I'm going to stop you right there for just 1 sec. Take your time. If you need a tissue, go ahead. So it sounds like you're describing Daunte as being nervous and scared. And take a deep breath. We'll take it slow. But I'm going to ask you to describe for the jury when you said that the police asked Daunte to step out of the car, what happened next?
When he stepped out of the car, I don't remember too much of the scuffling. I mean, I've seen the video footage, you know, when it first came out, like months ago, but like memory-wise, I don't remember the scuffling. I just remember after.
So you said you remember after, and you had described just before this that you said that they asked him to put down the phone, something like that. What do you remember about that?
Like, because his mom, he was trying to ask her if, like, he had any warrants or if he was in trouble, and she kept telling him no.
All right, 1 second. I'm just going to stop you right there. When he was stepping out of the car, what do you remember happening with that phone? Did he have a phone in his hand?
Oh, no. They kept telling him to put it down, and he dropped it, so
Okay.
he can get out. And
So he put down the phone to get out of the car.
yeah,
Did he then get out of the car?
yes.
And then you said you didn't remember much of the scuffling. What do you remember happening next?
I just remember, like, hearing, like, just, like, the boom, the bang of the gun, and then I remember just looking up and seeing, like, another white car, just like, coming directly toward us. Like, I remember lifting up my head real quick and just boom, and I can't tell if it was before or after, but I just remember, like, trying to just get him up. Like, I was the only one who, out of everybody there, I was trying to help him. And I was trying to push on his chest and call his name. And he wasn't answering me. He was just gasping, like just taking breaths of air. So, and then I just remember being walked out of like a car and being escorted.
Hang on 1 second. I'm going to stop you right there.
Sorry.
I know it's tough, so just take a minute, and we'll just take it piece by piece, okay?
Okay.
So it sounds like you said you remember seeing a car, another car. Is that what you were describing? That you saw another car? And then you said you were pressing on his chest. Is that what you
Like
said?
his like stomach area, like probably like right here. I
Okay.
didn't know exactly where he got shot, so.
Okay, so let's just take that part step by step.
Okay.
So you said you remember hearing a bang or something like that. And then after that, you saw another car. Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
Were you looking at Daunte at that point?
Yeah.
And so what did you see when you looked at Daunte Wright?
It just really happened like fast. Like I remember just looking at, it wasn't really him, but like it was kind of like him, but like the floor, like I could see like his hands were on the wheel, and that's why I was confused. And then I looked up at the car.
And you looked up and you saw a car. What happened at that point when you saw the car?
We hit the car.
So the car crashed, is that right?
Yes.
And then what did you do? You were describing you were putting your hands on Daunte, on Mr. Wright. Can you describe that part, please?
I was, I took my belt off and I grabbed like whatever was in the car. I don't remember if it was a sweater, a towel, or a blanket or something. I just grabbed whatever it was and put it on his chest, like you see in movies and TV shows. And I didn't know what to do, so I just put my hands over his chest and I just tried to hold it, and I was just trying to scream his name, and I was just trying to have him talk to me, and just kept saying, Daunte, like just say something, please, like just talk to me. And he just couldn't. Like I know he tried, like I know he wanted to, because I replay that image in my head daily.
Okay, I'm going to stop you right there for just 1 second. Take a breath. If you need a tissue, feel free. And if you need a break, you just let me know. All right?
Okay.
You said that you were pushing on his chest because you had seen something like that on TV. Were you trying to stop the bleeding?
Yeah.
And you were trying to talk to him at that point. Is that right? What was he doing? Was he...
He was just like, I don't want to like demonstrate like how he was, but he just had his arms folded kind of, and he's just like just gasping, just like he just wasn't saying anything.
So
I was trying to get him to like say a word at least or something, so I knew he had a chance of being okay, but he just wasn't saying anything.
So
but he was alive, so I didn't think he was alive.
Okay, so you're describing that he was gasping.
Yeah.
You were trying to get him to respond to you.
Yeah.
But he couldn't say any words. Is that right?
Yeah.
And you were trying to put pressure on him. Is that right?
Yes.
At some point, did that stop? The gasping stop and the moving stop?
I don't remember. I think I was pulled out of the car. I don't recall.
Okay. But the car that you were in came to a stop at some point. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. And how was Daunte, Mr. Wright, how was he positioned in the car? Was he leaning back or leaning forward? Do you remember?
He was leaning back. It was like this. That's what I remember.
Okay.
He was leaning back.
And at no point, at any point, were you able to get him to respond to you or move or get up?
Unfortunately, no, I was not.
Okay. Now, while you were in that car with Daunte, with Mr. Wright, was there another call? Was there a video call that came through?
Yeah.
Tell the jury about that.
It was his mom.
And what happened during that call?
Yeah, it was a video call. She was asking what happened. I know I was just delirious. I was just screaming like they shot him. They shot him. And then I pointed the camera on him, and I was so sorry. And I did that because I was sorry.
Okay, we'll take a minute. We'll take a minute.
Oh yeah, I just pointed the camera at him. I was just in shock and I apologize, but yeah.
Okay. Hang on right there just so I make sure that I'm clear about what you're saying.
Yeah, sorry.
It's okay. Take a deep breath. You said that you pointed the camera at him.
Yeah.
And it was his mom on the phone.
Yes.
And you were saying you were just sorry that you did that?
Yes.
And why are you sorry that you did that?
Because no, mom should have to see that your son dead on a phone, on a video call. Just out of nowhere, like, I know how my mom felt when she couldn't find me for hours afterwards. So I just know that I hurt her by doing that. And I apologize, Katie.
Okay. So I hear you saying that no mom should see her son dead on the phone, and you know that that hurt her, and you apologize for that?
Yeah, just that period, but yeah.
All right. Take a moment. After that call, was that when you got out of the car?
I don't recall. I do remember getting out of the car at some point, though.
Okay. Your Honor, at this point, I would offer Exhibits 166 and 167. I don't believe there's any objection.
Could you identify the exhibits?
Those are
please?
photographs of the white Buick.
Is there any objection to those exhibits? Those exhibits will be admitted into evidence and you may publish.
Thank you. We'll start with 160. Actually, could we put 166 and 167 next to each other on the screen, please? All right, I'm putting on this screen Exhibits 166 and 167. Is that the white car that you were in?
Yes.
And in Exhibit 167, there's a close-up of some damage to the windshield that I just circled. Is that the side of the car that you were on?
Yes.
And did you sustain some injuries as a result of all this?
I did.
And we'll get into those a little bit later, but do you believe that the injuries that you sustained were related to this crash?
I do.
Okay. You said that you got out of the car. At this point, Your Honor, I would offer Exhibit 29, which is the video of Ms. Albrecht-Payton walking out of the car.
Any objection to Exhibit 29?
Previous objection.
Okay. Exhibit 29 will be admitted over defense objection, which I overruled.
All right, and we will publish that now, please.
Walk to me! Okay. Just keep your hands out of your pockets. Okay. Come back here. Come back here. Okay. Come over here. Come over here. Just don't worry about that. Don't worry about that. Who else is in the car? Huh? Nobody? Okay, just drop it. Just let it go. Just let it go. Let it go. Let it go. I got it. I got it, ma'am. I will give it to you. Okay, put your hands behind your back. You're not under arrest. Just put your hands behind your back. Okay? You're not under arrest. Just put your hands behind your back. Okay, I'm just going to cover this. I don't know what's going on. Okay, who else is in the car now? Nobody? There's nobody else in the car, it's just you? Who? Him? Who's him? Daunte? Does he have a gun or anything? No? It's just you and Daunte. Okay. Just one other person inside. All right, you want to search it and stuff? Okay. Huh?
Were you explaining to the officer at that point that there was no one else in the car other than you and Daunte?
Yes.
And we talked a little bit about your injuries. How were you feeling at this point when you were coming out of that car?
I couldn't really feel anything. I just remember my jaw, like I just remember walking and my blood was just spilling from my mouth.
And did paramedics take you to the hospital after that?
Yes. I was told not right away, but yes.
And what were the injuries that you learned about that you had? You learned after the fact what your injuries were. What were those injuries?
I had a lacerated lip, so I have a scar. I had stitches. It went all the way through. I don't know what happened, but all the way through my lip. Stitches in my ear and a fractured jaw. I had wires on my jaw for about 6 weeks, maybe a little more. And I sustained like a concussion, and yeah.
So you said you had a laceration, a concussion, a broken jaw, and that your broken jaw was wired shut for some period of time. Is that right?
Yeah.
Did you have to have surgery as well?
I did.
At this point, Your Honor, I would offer Exhibits 30 and 31. Those are the photos of the injuries.
Okay. 30 and 31 will be admitted over defense objection.
And we would publish Exhibit 30 at this time. All right, I've put on the screen Exhibit 30. Can you just describe what's shown here?
That is my left ear.
And sorry, you said that you had to have something done to your left ear. Can you explain that?
Yeah, that is my left lacerated ear. So they had to stitch somewhere in, like, can I write on it or no?
You can use, there should be actually a little pen
I
style.
had to get stitches like right here in that area.
Okay. And then we'll publish Exhibit 31, please. What's shown in Exhibit 31?
That's my jaw. It's my lip too. Where I believe I probably fit it or something. I don't know, but that's the gigantic hole.
So you said you had a hole in your lip and a broken jaw.
Yeah.
Is this what you looked like the day of this incident on April 11th?
Yes.
Have you had long-term impacts from that broken jaw or the injuries that you suffered?
Yeah.
Can you describe what that has been like to the jury, please?
So my jaw, it's weird. It's this way, so I've had to get used to a whole new jaw. As you can see, like when I open my mouth or whatever, it goes to a certain way. And just like when I sleep, just weird, like it's hard to explain it. My teeth would just not be aligned, and it'll feel like I'm biting just hard a lot. So it's different, but.
Did you have pain for quite some time?
Said what? Sorry.
Did you experience pain for a while?
Yes.
And were you given pain medications both on this day and afterward to treat your pain?
No, just once after my surgery.
After your surgery?
Yes.
Okay. But the paramedics, did they also treat you on your way?
I believe so, yes.
Okay. Nothing further, Your Honor.
Cross.
Sorry.
Good morning.
Good morning.
How would you like me to address you? Miss Payton, is that
Yes, whatever is easiest for you to pronounce, yeah.
All right. I'm going to ask you just a few questions about this incident. Do you remember when Mr. Wright was getting out of the car that he was hesitant?
When he was getting out of the car? No.
Yeah. Do you remember saying to him, just do it, just go, when the officers asked him to get out of the car?
No, I do not remember.
Have you looked at the video of this incident?
Not the full one, no.
Excuse me?
Not the full one, no.
Well, did you look at the video of the...
The ones that, sorry.
Just let me finish the question.
Yeah, sorry.
Have you looked at the video of the one where Officer Luckey was telling him to get out of the car, and he was asking why? Did you see that one?
No.
Okay. What video did you look at?
The ones that they published for, like, the world, like on YouTube, the news, just the ones where he was out of the car already being handcuffed.
So you did not see him going back into the car?
Yes, that's the video.
Okay. And let's back up a little. You testified that you had known Mr. Wright for how long?
About 2-3 weeks.
2 or 3 weeks. And
Yeah.
when did you first start dating him?
We were never really official because we didn't get the chance to.
Well, he stayed at your house the night before.
Yeah.
How long had he stayed at your house prior to the incident?
Just a couple nights, not too many though, but he did stay with me.
Okay. And when did you first date him? Like you went out, you met him. Did you meet him on social media?
Yes.
Okay. When did you first meet him personally?
When I first met him personally,
Yeah.
I don't remember the exact date, but it was in it's like probably the beginning, like not the beginning, the end of March, like in that area, and then, yeah. Because if we're talking for 2 to 3 weeks, and then, yeah.
Do you remember what you did the first time you met him?
Yes.
What did you do?
We hung out.
What do you mean by hung out?
All right, the objection is granted in part and denied in part.
You stayed at your house that evening before April 11th, correct? And when you woke up in the morning, do you remember what time you woke up?
No, but it was like early, I think.
Excuse
I
me?
believe we woke up early, like around 10.
10 o'clock
Yeah,
in the morning?
I believe so.
Okay, and did Daunte wake up at that time also?
I believe so, yeah. If one of us is up, the other is also up.
All right, and that was about 10 o'clock in the morning?
Yes.
And do you know whether or not Daunte Wright had smoked marijuana that morning?
Yes.
And did he?
Yes.
And was that right after he got up?
I'm not too sure, but I believe so.
Okay. May I have a moment, Your Honor, to make sure I have this, your mandate correct? when Daunte Wright was smoking the marijuana, was that in your home?
Yes.
And were you smoking marijuana too?
Yes.
And I believe the evidence previously was that he, and I might be incorrect on this, that he arrived at his mother's house at about 11.
Yeah.
So, and if you got up at approximately 10 o'clock in the morning, you and him smoked some marijuana before you went out to his mother's, correct?
So I wasn't sure about the 10, but it was just an estimate, but yes.
Okay. And on the way out there, did you smoke any marijuana in his automobile?
No.
It was just in your house?
Yeah. Well, on the way to his mother's house, yes.
Okay.
No, we didn't smoke in. Like, it was in my house, but on the way to his mother's house, no, not in the car.
Okay, but you smoked it at your mother's house.
Oh, sorry, yes.
And was it one joint, or did you smoke 2 joints, or did you? One? Did
Yeah.
you split it?
We had together. We smoked it together, yes.
And who supplied it, you or him?
Objection, Your Honor. Irrelevant.
The objection is sustained.
Okay. And did you, after smoking this marijuana, feel that it had affected you at all?
No, Your Honor. Well, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to say that.
But thank you.
No, not any
Okay.
disabling effects, no.
You had observed Mr. Wright prior to this for at least a week or two. Could you tell whether or not the marijuana that he had smoked had affected him at all?
It did not.
You could tell that.
Yeah. Yes.
And why were you going out to his mother's? Do you remember that?
He just wanted to go see his mom. I don't remember specifically what the reason was. We were always together, so.
Did you meet his mom prior to that time at all?
Not personally, no.
And you stayed in the vehicle
Yes.
while he went in the house that morning, correct?
Yes.
And why was that?
Because, I've never seen his son or his mom, so, I just stayed in the car. I didn't want to intrude.
Okay. He didn't want to introduce you to his mom?
Intrude. I didn't want to intrude.
Intrude?
Yes.
And you had 2 phones that day, fair statement?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, you have to answer yes or
So
no.
sorry. Yes. Sorry.
Okay.
So sorry.
And one phone was for you,
Yes.
and I'm not quite sure I understand what the other phone was used for.
So what the other phone was used for, it was just both my phones. Like, they were just phones.
Okay,
Yeah. Like,
why did you have 2 phones?
I just had 2 phones.
No real reason?
Yeah, I didn't use them for specific reasons. I just had 2 of them.
And Daunte did not have a phone that morning?
He did have a phone.
Okay, well, when he called his mother, he used your phone, correct?
Yeah.
Do you know why?
Because his phone wasn't working. I gave him my Xfinity Wi-Fi.
Now, after, we'll withdraw that question. I believe you testified, and I apologize if I didn't quite catch it right, because it was, besides being old and hard of hearing a little bit,
Yeah.
I couldn't understand what you're saying because you're crying.
Yeah.
But I believe you said that Daunte drove down the road after he was shot. Is that right?
He did not drive down the road. His hands were not on the wheel.
Okay.
His foot was on the gas.
Well, was his hands on the wheel in the beginning?
His hands were never on the wheel.
And how do you remember that specifically?
I remember that specifically.
Okay, and did he turn on the vehicle?
The vehicle was never off.
Are you sure of that?
I don't think it was, because how would it have just started if it was never...
So do you remember specifically whether or not the vehicle was on or off?
I do not.
Your Honor, I'm cross-examining the witness.
All right, excuse me. You may answer.
I do not recall
Okay,
specifically.
thank you. And the injuries you received, which were serious, right,
Yes.
were caused by the car accident.
Yes.
You didn't receive any injuries from any other incident, correct?
No.
And you mentioned on direct examination, I believe you said that you did not have a good past with police?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's-
Sorry, I'm so sorry. I keep doing that. I'm sorry. Sorry.
Yeah.
Yes.
What did you mean by that?
Objection, Your Honor, irrelevant.
I'm going to let you answer. I mean, I think she testified to that.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Okay. My father was. He is well, an ex-criminal. I don't know what you would call that, but we've had encounters with the law enforcement before, and most times they were never good. Whenever it was around my dad, so it was just growing up seeing, just negative encounters with the police.
Between your father and the police?
Yes.
Not between you and the police?
No. I was
And
too
did
young.
did you live with your father after you were 12 years old?
No.
You lived with your godmother?
I lived with my mother.
And where was that?
I lived with my mother at 12 years old. I was on the east side of St. Paul.
When this incident happened, your mother was living up north. Is that a fair statement?
That is correct.
And you're living down here with your godmother?
Correct.
And that would be in St. Paul?
Yes.
And how long had you lived with her?
I've lived with her since I was about 14.
Okay. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there any redirect?
Briefly, Your Honor.
Yes.
Just a couple more questions. As far as you know, the car was never turned off. Is that right?
Object to that as leading, Your Honor.
Your Honor,
She already answered the question as leading.
he asked multiple times.
All
I'd like
right.
to clarify.
Okay. Counsel, you're going to have to rephrase your question.
I will rephrase. As far as your memory goes,
Yeah.
was the car off or on during the entire time?
I do not recall, but I do believe that it was on, but I do not recall.
Not responsive to the last part of that. She said she didn't remember.
Okay.
That's her testimony.
Counsel, one-word objections, please.
Thank you, Your Honor. Are there parts of this incident that are difficult to recall?
Yes, there are.
And why is that?
Because I sustained a severe concussion and a little bit of a breakdown afterwards.
Was this a traumatic incident for you?
Yes.
Your boyfriend was shot right in front of you, right?
Yes.
Object to that as leading and move it be stricken, Your Honor.
Oh.
It's obviously not.
Okay, the objection is overruled. I'll let the answer stand.
Thank you, Your Honor. Based on your memory today, what was the situation with the car when you were pulled over?
Object to that as a vague question. What was the situation? I don't know.
Would you like to rephrase
I will
that, Counsel?
rephrase. Based on your best recollection, was the car off or on and running during your interaction with police that day?
Same objection, Your Honor. She's already asked that. I've asked it.
All right, excuse me. Counsel, could you clarify the time that you're referring to?
Sure. At the time that you were pulled over by the police with Mr. Wright, Daunte, based on your recollection, was the car running Was it still on or was it off?
It was running.
Okay. Now, at some point after the car drove off,
Yes.
you were removed, is that right?
Yes.
Are you unclear today about when exactly the car was turned off?
Yes.
Okay. Is that what you're testifying to today?
Yes.
Thank you. Nothing further, Your Honor.
Once again, what your testimony was, or what your memory is that after, obviously, he was driving the car before you stopped, correct?
Okay, sorry, will you say it again?
Pardon me?
Can you say it again?
Yes.
Yeah.
He was obviously driving the car before he was stopped, correct?
Yes.
And when he was stopped, the car was running, correct?
Yes.
And after the car was stopped, you don't recollect, you don't remember if the car was off or on. Fair statement?
Yes.
Thank you, ma'am.
Okay, anything further from the state?
No, Your Honor.
All right, Ms. Payton, you may step down. Thank you. The state may call its next witness.
Thank you, Your Honor. The state would call Patricia Lundgren to the stand.
Hello, Ms. Lundgren. Please come over by the witness stand and stand behind the witness chair. Raise your right hand. Do you swear under penalty of perjury that you will truthfully testify in connection with this case? Very good. All right. Please have a seat. And would you please remove your mask?
Pardon?
Remove your mask. Okay. State your full name and spell it.
Patricia Lundgren, Patricia. Lundgren, Lundgren.
Okay, there's a couple of rules in testifying. The court reporter that's sitting in front of you is taking down everything that's being said. So you have to answer with a yes or no instead of shaking your head or saying uh-huh or uh-uh. Only one person can talk at a time. Please wait until the question is finished before you start answering. If you don't understand a question, please let the lawyer know. And finally, if an objection is made, please stop talking immediately and don't answer the question unless I tell you to.
Okay.
All right. Counsel?
Thank you, Your Honor. Ms. Lundgren, you might need to pull the microphone a little closer to you so we can all hear you really well. Okay, let's try that. Thank you. Can you please tell us, how old are you currently?
Pardon?
How old are you?
I still didn't catch it.
Okay. How old are you today?
Oh, I'm 84.
And are you currently married?
Yes.
What is your husband's name?
Kenneth Lundgren,
And how old is Kenneth?
86.
And I want to take you back to April 11 of this year. Do you recall that day?
Yes.
And were you in a car crash that day?
Yes.
And were you, where were you living? What town were you living in at the time of that crash?
I was living in Brooklyn Park.
Living with Kenneth?
Pardon?
Were you living with Kenneth, your husband?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear. Still.
Were you living with Kenneth?
Oh, yes.
And when you got in that car crash, do you recall what kind of car you were driving?
I was driving a 2019 Subaru Outback.
And when you got in the crash, who was driving?
I was.
And was there anybody else in the car at the time?
My husband was.
And where was he in the car?
He was in the passenger side.
In the front?
In the front, yeah.
And where were you driving? Where were you traveling when you got into that crash?
I was going home.
And what street were you on?
63rd Avenue, Brooklyn Center.
Do you remember which direction you were going?
I was going west.
And do you recall if you were driving the speed limit?
Yes, I was.
And do you recall how fast that was?
30.
And as you were traveling along, what did you see before the crash? Can you tell the jurors just what happened?
Well, I know I did see the white car coming. Let's see. East on 63rd in the other lane towards me.
And then what happened after that?
Well, all of a sudden, he just cut straight across my lane in front of me.
And did you see it hit anything before you?
Did it hit anything?
Yeah.
I didn't really see, but I don't think so.
Okay. And so, did it hit your car then?
Yes.
Can you describe for the jurors, what you saw, where it hit you, that kind of thing?
Well, when I saw the car coming in my lane, I sort of went to the right side, which is what we all do when there's emergencies. And anyway, we ended up in the same spot.
And so did the white car hit your car?
I think. I'm not really sure who hit who, and then I thought that I missed them, but then I was spinning around in the highway, and of course the bags were all inflated, and my husband was moaning, and I ended up in the eastbound lane, and I was surprised that no one was coming to help me, which you always see in accidents. And then I opened the door and got out. And I did not have any injuries, but my husband did.
Okay. I'm going to back up just a little bit. Before the actual crash, did you cross the center line at all?
No.
Okay. Did the other vehicle cross the center line?
Yes.
So it came into your lane?
Yes.
And do you recall where on your car that car hit you?
Well, I think it was like, our front ends met.
Okay.
Yeah.
Was it more on the passenger side or your side, do you recall?
I guess it was. I'm not sure.
Okay, fair enough. So at some point, it sounds like your car came to a stop, right?
Yes.
And that's when you said nobody came to the car to help you?
Yeah, when I stopped, yeah.
And so then, did you get out?
Yes.
And what did you notice, in the area when you got out of the car?
I don't know what I noticed. No one was right around my car. It was strange. And So then I went to the other side and helped Ken get out of his seat.
Okay. When you first got out of your car, did you see any police officers in the area?
Well, I heard the police demanding kind of that the driver in the other car get out. And I saw his, well, I'm not just sure.
Okay.
I'm not.
So maybe my question should have been, did you hear a police officer? It sounds like you did.
Yes, I did.
Now, while we're talking about this, I'm going to show you some photographs, all right?
Mm-hmm.
Is that yes? You have to answer yes or no.
Yes.
Your Honor, at this time I'm going to offer Exhibits 33, 34, and 35, the photographs of the vehicle.
Any objection to 34, 35, and 36?
For the record, it's 33 through 35. That's okay.
Okay, those exhibits will be admitted into evidence.
All right. So I'm going to put Exhibit 33 up on the screen. It'll show up right in front of you there, okay?
Yep.
So do you recognize the car in that photograph?
Yes.
And whose car is that?
Mine.
All right. So that's the car you were driving that day?
Right.
Okay. And then so that's the passenger side, correct?
Yes.
And then let's go to Exhibit 34. Do you recognize that?
Yes.
That's the car as well, correct?
Right.
All right. And then let's go to Exhibit 35. And that's your car on the driver's side, correct?
Right.
So when you got out of the car, you got out from the driver's side, right?
Right.
And did you have to go around that airbag that seems to be there in the picture?
Yeah.
And then when you got out, if we can go back to Exhibit 34, you see some police cars in the background.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
And is that area in the background where you heard the police officer's voice yelling from?
Well, he was on the other side of the street then.
Okay. And so when you talk about that police officer yelling, that police officer was on the other side of the street.
Right.
All right. And so then, I'm sorry, if we could go back to 33, you started telling us that you, how did you feel when you got out of the car?
Well, I felt okay, really.
Okay. And so you went around to the passenger side, I think.
Right.
And what did you see regarding Kenneth?
Well, he couldn't open his doors, or I don't know. Anyway, he couldn't get out of the door. And I opened his door then and helped him get out of his seat.
And when you went to his side and opened the door, were the airbags inflated like they are here in Exhibit 33?
Yes, they were.
And when you say you helped Kenneth get out of the car, can you just explain for the jurors, please, what you mean by that?
Well, he really kind of didn't know where he was, and his head was hurting. The airbag, the side airbags were still inflated, and really hard blowing, up. They were really tight. And I had to get him to lower his head to get out of the car.
And so you had to physically help him get out of the car?
Yes, I did.
And as you were, were you able to get him out of the car?
Yes, I was.
And then what did you do after that?
Well, then there was a policeman, what should I say, west of there. There were lots of policemen then, up, going west. And he motioned for me to come back behind his vehicle. And so we did.
And so
Into evidence.
I'm going to show you Exhibit 32. Can you tell us who are those two people?
That's me and my husband.
So it appears you are standing and Kenneth is sitting.
Mm-hmm.
Is that correct?
Behind the police car, yeah.
And so Kenneth is a little bit bigger person than you. Is that fair?
Yeah.
Pretty tall.
He was.
And so this is when you were sitting behind the police car, correct?
Yes.
All right. And you said you waited there for a long time.
Yeah.
And eventually the two of you got checked out by an ambulance, correct?
Yes.
And did you, let me ask you this. Where did you go after being checked out by the ambulance?
Well, we sat in the EMT's ambulance kind of for quite a while, and I really don't know what time. But then we were taken to the police station in Brooklyn Center.
And from there, were you able to get home eventually?
Yeah, we sat at the police station, I think, for 3 hours maybe, and then they didn't have time to talk to us, and of course we didn't know why. But I'm not going to suppose. And then they did take us home about 6 o'clock.
Now, at some point, did you, the next day, seek some medical attention?
Yeah, we went to North Memorial for a checkup, and they took x-rays of Ken's chest. I'm not sure what all, they did at that time.
Yeah. How are you feeling the next day?
I really have felt just fine all the time.
But you went to the hospital because Kenneth was feeling how?
We went to the hospital because I guess we just thought that's what we should do. And we should have gone on Sunday, but we didn't.
So you went and got checked out?
Yeah,
Okay. And were you allowed to go home then?
yeah.
Prior to that day, had Kenneth been experiencing some health problems anyway?
No,
Okay.
not really.
After that accident, have you noticed a difference in Kenneth?
Yeah, great. He is on hospice care now, and yeah, he has lots of problems now.
Fair to say that he had been having some cognitive problems before the crash?
I hadn't really noticed any,
Yeah.
but perhaps.
But since the crash, you have noticed?
Yeah, a lot.
And so he had to go to hospice care for a while?
He was in Covenant Living hospice care, but it's really expensive, and so we have him at home now with hospice care.
So it's not that he's in hospice care just because of the accident, would you say, or is it just he's been a lot worse since the accident?
A lot worse since the accident.
Okay. Those are all the questions I have. Thank you.
Okay. Counsel, you may cross.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I'm Earl Gray. I'm one of the lawyers for Kim Potter. I'm going to ask you just a few questions, and most of them will be about your statement you gave on April 13th. Do you remember that?
Yes.
Okay. You described in that interview that you said, man, we really hit hard, and you slapped your hand. You do that?
Yeah.
And you really were hit hard. Is that a fair
Yes.
statement?
Yes. We were.
And your car was destroyed. Is that a fair statement?
Mm-hmm.
And you also stated if it hadn't been a Subaru in your seat belts, you and your husband would have died, correct?
Correct.
And then you asked at the end of the statement, do they have insurance? Do you ask that question? Do you remember that?
The other party, right?
Yes. Who was Daunte Wright? Was he the one driving the other car?
Yes.
And he's the one that hit you head on, pretty much, correct?
Right.
And you asked if he had insurance, correct? I have it.
Probably. I don't
Okay,
remember.
I have it in the statement. I'm not.
Okay.
Okay. That's all I have. Thank you, ma'am.
Okay.
Is there a redirect?
Nothing further. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much. You may step down. Okay, counsel, we're gonna, if you have a short witness,
I do, Your Honor.
okay, you may call your next witness.
Thank you, Your Honor. We would call Denise Wells to the stand.
Ms. Wells, will you please come over to the witness stand and stand behind the chair? Raise your right hand, please. Do you swear under penalty of perjury that you will truthfully testify in connection with this proceeding?
I do.
Please have a seat. You may remove your mask. Please state your full name for the record.
Denise Lundgren Wells.
And will you spell it?
Pardon?
Please spell it.
DeNiselundgrenWells.
Okay, a couple of things to keep in mind when you're testifying. The court reporter is taking down everything that's being said, so only one person can talk at a time. Please wait until the question is finished before you start answering. Please answer with a yes or a no instead of shaking your head. Please try not to say uh-huh or uh-uh, because that doesn't make for a clear record. If you don't understand a question, let the lawyer know and it'll be clarified. And finally, if an objection is made, you need to stop talking immediately. I don't want you to answer the question unless I tell you to. All right, counsel?
Thank you, Your Honor. Good morning.
Good morning.
And if you would tell us, are you related to Patricia Lundgren, who you probably just passed in the hallway?
Yes,
How are you two related?
she's my mother.
And Ms. Wells, we ask everybody this question. How old are you?
62.
And are you currently working?
I am retired, but also working as a reserve principal right now.
So before you retired, what did you do?
I was the principal for Minneapolis Public Schools.
How long did you work in education?
38 years.
I always like when we have witnesses who are in education because they understand the rule about and uh-huh. So this will be a little easier to enforce with you. But so when did you retire officially?
June 30th, 2021.
And just been doing some part-time work for the schools since then?
Yep, the last couple of weeks I've been filling in as a reserve principal.
Do you recall April 11th of this year when your parents were involved in a car crash?
I do.
And how did you learn about the car crash that they were in?
Well, I was on my phone at night with a friend, and my mother called me, and I didn't pick it up right away. And so when I got off the phone, I called her. I listened to her voicemail, and her voicemail to me said, "We've been in an accident. The car is totaled. The guy died. We're tired. We're going to bed. Don't call us."
And not the kind of call a daughter wants to hear about her 80-year-old parents.
No.
Okay. So what did you do after getting that?
Well, I tried to call them, and they didn't pick up. And then I yelled at my husband and said, "You know what, I'm really worried. My parents been in an accident. Someone died. Their car's totaled. I don't know anything else." And so he got in his car and drove to their home and pounded on their door and woke them up. So just to make sure that they were okay.
And so he confirmed they were okay, at least for the night. And the next morning, did you, well, that should be a question. Did he confirm that they were okay for the night, at least?
Yes.
And did you then help your parents the next day?
I was at work, and I called them later in the morning, and they had taken themselves to the emergency room and been cleared. And then later in the day, I called them again, and they were looking through the white pages to find the phone number for the Brooklyn Center Police Department. So I got on I said, "I'll do it." And so they wanted their car. I keep doing, sorry. So I looked up the phone number and called, and then someone called me back and basically said, that your parents can't have their cars in custody of the BCA, and until they release it, your parents can't have access to their car. So I called them back and told them that.
Okay. And was there anything particular that your mom wanted about the car?
She wanted to get her coat out of the car.
Okay. And when she was trying to find the phone number for the Brooklyn Park Police Department, well, let me ask it this way. Were they eventually able to locate the car?
Eventually, later, I think Tuesday, 2 days later, after they had a investigator come out and interview them from the BCA, and then their car was released. Prior to that, even though I told them they can't have their car, they were armed with the white pages and heading out to looking for tow lots to find the car, so that they're pretty determined to find the car. And, you know, again, had to say, you can't have that. You have to wait. So,
Did you recognize something called the white pages?
yes. I say that because nobody that I know or work with would, anyway, in this day and age, use the white pages to do just about anything. But that's what they're used to.
That's what Mom was doing to try and find the car.
Yes.
And so eventually, was she able to get her coat?
Yes, eventually. And all their belongings out of the car.
I want to talk about your dad, Kenneth. Have you lived in the same area as your parents
I have.
for how much of your life?
We moved to the Minneapolis area, Brooklyn Center, Brooklyn Park, when I was 4.
So you've been in the same area as your parents mostly all your life.
Yes.
And over the last, 10, 15, 20 years, how often would you see your parents?
I see them pretty much weekly, I would say. More so recently.
And prior to April 11th of this year, had your dad been having some health issues?
22 years ago, my dad had an AVM brain bleed. It stands for arterial, it's a mass in the base of his, here in his neck, or in the base of his skull. And he was, it kind of like a stroke. And he recovered. He never recovered totally. He always had his speech wasn't as clear as it used to be, or his ability to multitask was somewhat impaired. And he had been doing well, though. He was functioning, he was driving.
Did that change? Did you notice a change in that after April 11th of this year?
Yes, prior to April 11th, he was still driving. And after the accident, I began to notice that it was increasingly hard to understand him. And his sense of reasoning was why he was doing the things he was doing weren't clear, or his articulation seemed to be getting worse and worse, and I could understand less and less of what he said. And they had a doctor appointment, I think April 20th, and I said, Mom, because I was still working, you have to, when you're with the doctor, I need you to call me because I want to talk to the doctor. And prior to that, I'd never done medical appointments with them before, but I do now. And basically, I told the doctor, I said, something's wrong. His reasoning he's not making sense, and it's hard to understand him. He's more forgetful. So, yes, I noticed the difference.
Did you see, in being around him and others, like your mom, that he was not the same Kenneth as before April 11th?
No, he began kind of obsessing about dying. He called a friend up who, out of the blue, and asked him to sing at his funeral because he was dying. And I then called that friend and said, so how was that conversation? And he was a little taken back, to just get a call out of the blue. So, and my dad was unable to drive anymore. It's been a challenging spring.
And we understand that for some time he went into hospice care.
Yes, he's still in hospice care. He was, his balance has gotten much worse too, and he fell in August and got an abrasion on his knee, and the abrasion became infected. And they tried treating it with oral antibiotics, and they ended up hospitalizing him and putting him on IV antibiotics. And the infection became septic, and so they had to do surgery. So he was hospitalized, and from that hospitalization, he became, this is not my dad ever, but he became really belligerent. They had him strapped to the bed, and they tried to send him to rehab after 2 weeks in the hospital, and he was in rehab in the home, and he wanted to go home, and he ripped his PICC line out. So then he ended up back in the hospital, and they had him in restraints for another 2 weeks, and it's taken a really long time for him to become stabilized. So then he was sent to another home. While he was in the hospital, they did a MRI and found that his brain is shrinking, and he didn't make sense. He was fighting, pinching the nurses. He's a big guy. You saw my mom; she's little. He was a football player and just a big man. And so when he was released from the hospital, so the palliative care was called in, and they have determined that he is hospice. So he's still in hospice. He was in a home, and we've since brought him home, but then we have home health care coming in. My mom can't go get the mail down in her apartment without having someone there 24/7.
And just so you know, I want to be very careful about this. You understand your dad being his age and having some cognitive issues already, correct?
Yes.
But do you think what you've seen is that since April 11th, his condition has accelerated?
Extremely. I mean, he is no longer continent. He has to have all of his medications ground up. You know, I said to my mom, when did he become unable to swallow a pill? And things have accelerated quickly.
And so you're getting the appropriate care for him at home?
Yes.
All right. I have nothing further, Your Honor. Thank you.
Counsel?
Good morning.
Good morning.
I'm Earl Gray, Pauline, Kim Potter, and Amanda Montgomery. We represent Kim Potter. Did you learn after this accident who was driving the other car?
I did. Actually, I didn't see the news the night of the accident, but the next day I did.
And did you learn that Daunte Wright was the driver of the other vehicle?
Yes.
And did your mom usually drove the car because of his fall a few years back when they were together?
No. Up until then, sometimes she drove, sometimes he drove.
Okay. Thank you. That's all I have. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you very much. You may step down. Members of the jury, we're taking our morning break, so 20 minutes.